I wouldn't be surprised if we see a volatile jungle matchup between Blabber and Cryra today. But in the same way that DSG had a bad showing, C9 technically has 2 match wins. They have killed the enemy Nexus more than their own has fallen. But they have looked on average, I think, a lot worse than they did throughout lock-in, and they're not really brimming with confidence right now.
I mean, I casted the C9 series last week versus Sentinels. There was a lot of silliness in that series. There were definitely some shenanigans.
Can we bring back the car analogies? Those were fun.
We might need more of the car analogies today. I'm going to go ahead and say I hope not, because those cars were all over the ditch last weekend. But let's go ahead and hop into our draft here, because we do have the first round of bans already done. C9 has banned away the Karma, the Orianna, the Pantheon. Over on the Disguise side, it's the Varus and Jarvan that remain ever popular, alongside that APA Ziggs ban that just feels like a tax against C9, and Azir, the first pick for Disguise.
Yeah, and I do like that they are just respect banning the Ziggs. That is something that just APA and overall C9 looks super comfortable playing. As we see that Ashe Seraphine bot lane immediately get locked in for C9, we'll see what... I mean, MF has been somewhat of an answer to this, so, you know, we'll see how well they can pilot that, because the power of this Ashe Seraphine continues to kind of run rampant throughout not just the LCS, but like all like globally.
Absolutely, and we do see pairs always locked in against it. This is a pair we've seen against it. We saw this at First Stand, we see it occasionally throughout the world, but you often actually see Nautilus banned early in the series when you're going to blind pick the Ashe Seraphine, so it'll make that bot lane fairly volatile. The more standard match would have been something like Karma Nami to go up against Ashe Seraphine, or Ezreal Karma, which had been banned away with the Karma ban, but the bot pairs seem more entrenched than ever when I see drafts on this patch.
Yeah, okay, so we've got the Xin Zhao and the Azir being the mismatched role picks so far here in the first half, while both sides absolutely have their bottom lane duos drafted. So I expect the second half of the bans to kind of reflect that, and sure enough, it does. It's mid lane bans from Disguised, as Ryze will be the first target for them. C9 going to go ahead, take that Nocturne off the table, keep that away from Cryra.
But I think what's really interesting here is because the Jarvan and Pantheon were already banned, looked to me like C9 was going to try and pinch the AD jungle pool, but didn't at the last minute, because Vi is still available if they want to choose that, even though it's more of a side lane punishing champion, and C9's going to want to group to team fight. I'm a little surprised that they actually banned Rumble this late in the draft rather than just pinching out the rest of the OP AD junglers, so we'll see what they end up going with.
And our last ban here alongside the Rumble. From the Disguise side, they will remove the Yorick. They don't want that powerful split pushing threat. When you have Ashe Seraphine as just kind of this immovable bastion that can deal with a 3v3 or a 4v4 situation, having Yorick constantly marching down the side lane can be a real pain. C9 going to go ahead, lock in Cassiopeia for their mid lane.
Yeah, and Cass is something that we have also seen APA be very, very comfortable playing. It is one of his like many kind of comfort picks that previously was considered off meta, is now somewhat of a response to his ear. The Zac is something that Cryra has pulled out as one of his like kind of, again, off meta, like slightly wonky, pocket picks. But we do see the Jace locked in instead initially, and now hovering the Volibear.
Well, Jace, remember, we do still have the possibility for him to be flexed to the jungle these days as well, so not 100% certain that that'll be going into the top lane, although I would expect it to most likely be going there. Last pick here. Disguise taking their sweet time, running down the clock on this one.
Mundo makes a decent amount of sense. I will point out the reason C9 didn't ban Vi would have been scouting. Cryra is 0-4 all-time on Vi, so they're probably daring him to pick it, and that's why they're able to open up the Rumble ban.
And another thing interesting about Mundo is Cryra was one of the junglers that I was thinking when the Mundo nerfs came down. I was like, okay, he is one of those junglers that I feel like will pilot the Mundo. DSG occasionally rely on this kind of scaling, so it's not, we'll see how significant it is. We've still seen Mundo played, so it's like, I still think there's a lot of value in it. It does hurt his clear a slight bit if you look at some of the nerfs that came down. And then Sion locked in as the last pick for C9, which kind of puts together this really nice team fighting comp, kind of propelled with this Ashe Seraphine.
It does, and they're going to have to be able to find windows to group and team fight. I do find it funny how this game they're throwing Sion in the top lane, where they played Sion in Game 3 mid lane last series, and APA said, I get mad every time we let Thanatos play Sion because then I can't collect the free win on the mid Sion. But clearly he's not on the same page as everybody else. They like the look here with the Sion into the MF and specifically the Jace because he can get early armor against a Mundo who's not going to be a huge gank threat. So makes sense for the top lane in this game.
Plus, I always like when you have Seraphine on your team, if you have multiple frontliners that can facilitate the encore going further, blasting through the entirety of the enemy squad, and I think Sion and Xinjia are great champions to facilitate that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you think in the mid game that Sion and Xin are difficult to kill? Well, wait until they have a Seraphine behind them, buffing them up, and like you said, using that extra range to get a really good Seraphine ult off.
All right, let's do it. Getting on to Summoner's Rift for the first time today. Best of 3, C9 versus Disguised. And I think that this Ashe Seraphine combo has proven time and time again just how effective it is, just how oppressive it can be. So there is going to be pressure on Sajet and Lions to try to find something here with this Nautilus pick that's meant to be able to punish it, meant to be able to all in.
Absolutely. It's also Vulcan's first career Seraphine game, but it's only a matter of time with the Enchanter meta and Vulcan preparing for the future. Friendly chat, I think that's more of a checking to see if all chat is on and whether or not he should waste energy.
Okay. Fair enough. That makes sense. So coming into this matchup, I think one of the most important things to look at is the jungle in particular, right? You're looking at Blabber being one of these all-time great North American junglers, and you're looking at Kryra coming in as this guy who's really got to prove himself now. So we've got the blasting cycle that has occurred so far here in the LCS. Remember that Blabber blasted Griffin when they played in all of those series back-to-back, like going head-to-head back in first stand in Split 1, but then Griffin just last weekend blasted Kryra, right? Like just completely took over the series, took him out of the game, took all his Raptors. So now the question is, where does the blasting one aim from here? Can Kryra turn this into a Pokemon type of situation where each one counters one of the others in a circle? Or is this just going to be a line straight from Blabber through everybody else in a massive wake of destruction?
Yeah, circle of blasting or like a blast hierarchy.
Yes.
Trickle down blastonomics.
There will be blastonomics, but we don't know how they're going to function in this economy.
Well, thus far, there's been no crazy level 1 shenanigans, right? Like, we didn't have any sort of invade. Blabber does have something that Kryra doesn't in this game, which is Ashe Vision. The bane the bane of all like early junglers who have to go up against a team with an Ashe on it. And as we see that bot lane 2v2 just kind of firmly pushing in on the bot side, and both junglers just doing their top-down clears.
Yeah, the big wave crashed, so the CS is starting to equalize a little bit. There's only a 2 CS lead for Vulcan's Ven so far, but typically when you have the ranged support versus the melee support, unless you are getting that first kill or that first gank off, the Ashe Seraphine should be able to bully pretty hard. So we'll see what happens here with the first crab, because Kryra is in river quite early, and Blabber is approaching, so trying to get a gank off here.
All right, APA is under pressure. Kryra coming in, trying to punish some of that all-chatting so far. Immediately pops the heart stopper, but still takes a lot of damage from APA, who's down to 100 HP, flashes back out as Call Me proceeds to chase. Flash auto attack! Call Me shuts him up and sits him down. The Azir, however, about to get punished now as Blabber swoops into the mid lane. Flash for the win becomes lightning, guarantees the counter kill. Kryra can at least secure this topside Scuttle Crab and get away.
So really interesting there. It was very greedy from APA, but I feel like that was him and Blabber trying to pull off something impressive, because he knew he could get a ton of damage down onto the Mundo, and then Blabber probably thought he had a double crab angle right there, but APA gets a little bit too greedy, ends up taking too much damage and dies, but Blabber comes in to secure the cleanup kill.
Yeah, as we see, Kryra definitely saw his window, and Blabber's all the way down in the river, but kind of already headed up, and APA gets so much damage here, thinks he'll be able to flash out. Call Me finishes him up, and then Blabber's here to clean up the kill onto Call Me. Kryra does end up getting that top Scuttle Crab, and then Blabber got the bottom one too, so they still did split crabs off of that.
Ends up being pretty good for Kryra, all things considered, because his mid gank technically worked to get his mid laner a little bit ahead and also burned the flash of APA. So not much ends up coming of what was a pretty crazy looking play.
I also like burning the flash off of the Cassiopeia, considering the mid laners are about 1/3 of the the way to level 6, and we know that once Azir hits level 6, if the jungler shows up and the enemy mid laner does not have mobility to get out after he's already shuffled, all Calmy has to do is just find that angle for the shuffle, and boom, you've got another easy kill.
Yeah, and it'll be curious to see whether either jungler is going to pay attention to these mid laners here because they are now both flashless.
Calmy forced back a little bit here. Does have to be careful about that consistent APA damage, but both junglers once again looking towards the mid lane. Going to find one another here in the river. Blabber immediately jumps towards Kryra, but not getting a whole lot of value out of that one. Kryra just again trying to make sure that Blabber cannot interfere with anything here. Calmy just a minion or two away from level 6. Surely APA recognizes that by looking at his own EXP bar. Has to be careful here about the potential Emperor's Divide.
Yeah, APA wants to bluff a little bit because if Blabber stuck around, then the Xin would also be pretty strong in the 2v2, but Blabber's made his way to continue clearing as bot lane trades pretty aggressively. Yeah,
LYON's forced to use the heal there, very low on the Nautilus, has to flash away, and Sven's ready to flash follow. 2 more auto attacks with a Focus Fire, just take him down here in the 2v2. The Ashe Seraphine doing exactly as they please down here. Sven, he might just get the second kill, and he doesn't even die. It's tragedy for Disguised here in the bottom lane. Sven Vulcan cannot be underestimated.
Sven just gliding on him right there. Perfect aggression from Vulcan Sven in the 2v2. Even the half step back to avoid the damage from the Nautilus E ends up being really crucial in that extended trade, because if he takes any little tick of damage, it would be a trade back instead of now 2 kills to 0 in the 2v2.
Yeah, and this should give them really, really nice bot side control, despite the fact that Lions and Kryra are now kind of hanging out, potentially stopping any sort of Drake take since C9 did have to reset.
Yeah, so they're trying to get a little bit of tempo back, but even this is just Kryra's level 6, and then he can't stick around for that long because I don't feel like DSG is strong enough to just go for clearing, and Kryra's trying to swoop, gets it.
Okay, nice job there from Calmy, setting up APA. Kryra needs more damage here for the play, though. One more auto attack might be able to do it, and there you go. That's what I said earlier. Cassiopeia, no flash, you punish with a Azir ulti.
Yeah, and really good recognition of that small window like Jat set up, right? Like they had to reset after the bot lane kills came out. DSG kind of hung around, tried to establish, got that Scuttle Crab down, and then took advantage of that. But here is that bot lane 2v2, like you said, Jack.
Yeah, notice the hawk shot early into the bush to get the original vision, then the ward for the extra vision, and then extending the trade right here. Sajed just loses vision until Sven decides to hit him back one more time. Even with the health potion running, Sajed doesn't have the health to get that last auto off.
Yeah, and here's just the shuffle, flashless mid laner. APA does end up getting his ultimate off, but Kryra is still able to clean him up off of that. So just really nice recognition of the timing windows, seeing that DSG do have an opportunity to get something back and punish that flashless mid laner.
Yeah, that was the one place where they could really go on the map. So APA does need to play more conservative in those situations. The Scion is completely safe already with the plated steel caps up against the Jace. And honestly, the bottom lane has a 25 CS advantage, and it's so difficult for Mundo to rescue that bot lane. So Calmy's absolutely right to talk his trash, because APA's killing him is their only current plan in the early game.
Well, and Calmy can just kind of become monstrous alongside this Mundo for mid to late, right? Like he is kind of has become kind of their win condition and potentially an answer to winning some of these mid to late game team fights, depending on how well he does. I am glad that we had the little checking out. Do we have all chat on? Now we're going to talk a little trash back and forth.
Okay, so right now, Blabber, you can see he's starting up his first Drake 8 minutes into the game, so not particularly fast on that one, but look at the gold spread on the scoreboard. It's about over a 2,000 gold lead just in the bottom lane duos of C9, while the top side of the map goes the other way for Disguise. So C9, playing around anything on this bottom side is going to feel great. Sven and Vulcan are so accelerated. Blabber knows he should be able to take this no problem.
They have them completely jailed in that bot lane right now, and part of it is because of the Mundo pick, because if you're going to be taking the Nautilus MF into Ashe Seraphine, that's already a hard matchup, but it will be able to win in 3v3s. It's just Mundo's never going to help the 3v3, and now they're getting punished.
How about a 3v2 as immediately Blabber is ready to set this up? There's the encore over the top through everybody like I was talking about back in Champ Select. Blabber just makes it so easy for Sven and Vulcan, and Disguised's bottom lane is just crumbling to pieces.
And I love this out of C9, following the Drake take, recognizing that they can apply pressure. The bot lane's going to be coming back to lane, grouping up with Blabber and being able to get that kill en route as DSG were trying to reset.
Definitely had some conversations about whether or not enchanters are overplayed, because in the past right now, even after the first double kill, when that MF Nautilus respawn, they're running top lane and the Jace is running bot lane, and they're trying to reset the map a little bit. But once you lose control of bot lane now, that kind of stuff can just happen to you. They can't contest Drake, they're jailed under their turret, you can't even contest your own Gromp, and they can just dive you on your way back to the lane. They make a bad situation worse, and there's no escape because these teams don't want to leave their role quests uncompleted.
Yeah, and as we see, Cryer taking those grubs as kind of like the little consolation prize that they usually are. But that is where I do want to draw attention to specifically the mid lane, right? Because again, this now becomes their win condition. Can we get this Azir into a situation where he can potentially maybe be in a position to rip through late game team fights? It's still going to be difficult because again, you are going against Ashe Seraphine and then a Sion Xin Zhao, who are all going to be incredibly difficult to kill.
And you mentioned the Sion. We haven't really checked in on top lane because really nothing has happened there.
He just landed a Q flowers.
Yeah, they both queued each other. So far, top lane is pretty much exactly what you would expect it to be. Jace is up a wave or two of minions. It's not really that much. Call Me, though, taking a lot of damage from APA's Twin Fangs here. As soon as you're caught on that miasma, the slow just makes it so Cassio can land so much damage. APA still down just about 3 waves of farm here in the mid lane. Call Me still with that 1,000 gold lead on his Azir. Does have to take the reset, completes his Nashors. Now he's ready to TP back towards the mid lane, but again, it's Blabber, Vulcan, and Sven in the enemy jungle, putting the harass
Azir's
on
first, though.
Call Me swooping around from the side. This might be the punish that DSG needs. C9 overcommitting towards a Mundo, but now the damage back into Call Me is there. Vulcan takes the kill, and Disguised have to complete their retreat outside of the jungle. C9 comes out on top yet again. We aren't quite done. Now hold on. Blabber, this time he's getting hooked in. The big bullet time over the top, but it doesn't do enough damage. Sajed is dead. Blabber's on a killing spree. And Sven's looking for even more. Nothing they do works. Disguise dies yet again.
I guess C9 just wins 3 versus 4. That's just the game right now. Absolutely crazy here. You thought when Blabber goes over this wall and Call Me with Nashor's Tooth Power Spike flies in behind, they're going to win. We'll say nice stun into flash by Sven so he doesn't take damage from the Azir, and everyone just turns to focus. Very well played 3v4, which is usually a disaster by C9 because they switch targets so effectively.
Yeah, and then when they do try to follow up with the MF ult here, immediately are able to turn on to Sajed, and everything really, really falls apart for DSG now because...
Okay, nice guys. Really good. Going to base now.
Clean.
Because they're going to base now. And now they're going to rotate it somewhere else all over the map. Thanatos. Oh, no. Sajed is level 7. Oh, it's the classic stand there and auto him because you know you're not going to get away. Thanatos. We also saw during the picture-in-picture of the replay, Thanatos almost got solo killed by Castle up underneath his tier 1 turret. Both of the top laners did have to flash for that one. Now we could have yet another fight up here in the top side jungle. Blabber between Lions and Cry right here, but he doesn't seem to mind whatsoever. Lions trying to Spider-Man his way out of this one. But now Kryra could be the sacrifice. Blabber again with an audacious charge. Forces the flash over the wall from the Mundo. C9 still moving as a unit, trying to keep Blabber protected. Castle's coming in, wants to finish off the kill, but now Lions versus Blabber in the red side pit while APA does DPS and a Call Me to prevent him from being able to enter into the fight. The shutdown on Sven is there as Castle picks it up. Blabber goes into rampage, killing off the enemy jungler, but it's already a double kill back over to Castle. Lions barely stays alive in Disguise, finally gets a fight.
Way too over-aggressive there by C9. They already got away with 1 3v4. This ends up being kind of a 3.5v5 because Sajed could redeploy after dying bot lane, Emily.
Yeah, and Thanatos is unable to join the fight, right? So as we see, Jace is TPing in on the back half of this. He'll be able to come around for a flank. And APA and Call Me are also both trying to rotate up.
Yeah, maybe they didn't see the Castle TP, and then he also walked over what was control warded. Now that they see him, it's kind of toast, because if they knew where Jace was, I don't think Blabber would ever chase through the red buff, and everyone would exit down through Call Me. But that was ending up being a very effective flank by Castle's Jace.
Yeah, it was really nicely done by Castle, who is kind of the other power point that DSG have potentially on this map. And, you know, that flank saves them a bit. I do still think it's going to be very difficult for DSG as long as C9 are kind of traveling in this pack, especially Blabber with the Ashe Seraphine behind him, because even in that fight that they ended up losing and it was very over-aggressive and the Jace TP ended up kind of cooking them a bit, you saw how long Blabber survived.
And you can see on your screen right there, Sajed's stats, career 7-0 on Misfortune, 700 DPM average. This game, the bit of the anomaly, having to deal with the Ashe Seraphine, not having control in the lane, lost his footing early, and hasn't really been able to recover that, as now that bottom lane control for C9 leads to yet another Drake take. That is their second of this game. They've controlled both so far. Meanwhile, Call Me should at least be able to take this tier 1 turret up here in the top side. Single auto attack should knock it over, but no, APA arrives in time and somehow keeps the turret standing. Feel like Call Me probably could have taken that one if he wanted to, but all right, C9 holds it.
Yeah,
Whoop, now here, maybe this is what they wanted after all. APA gets shuffled back towards Kryra, but now the big arrow from across the map from C9 guarantees the hit on the Call Me, guarantees Thanatos can make that a 1-for-1. Meanwhile, C9's just going to take yet another neutral objective. Blabber has total control over the Herald.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're just casually also just taking Rift Herald at the same time. Really nice arrow as a finisher from Sven to get that on to Call Me. But again, it seems like anytime DSG, like APA coming in to save the turret, right? And then DSG are like, okay, we can make a play onto this Cassio, end up doing so, but the rest of C9 are still ready to collapse.
I'll also say, though, if I'm Dom and Anero sitting in the back room watching this game, hi guys, first. Secondly, I'm really concerned with how things are going based off how well things went in the bottom lane, because Castle just picked up a full turret. He's 2-0. He's going to have a really strong poke onto their squishies. And then this, Thanatos able to avoid this one, but the most perplexing thing to me here is, like, APA keeps playing so aggressively. Like, he's 1,500 gold down onto this Azir, and Call Me's letting you push him back. Aren't you a little suspicious as to why that might be happening? And then Kryra comes in and kills him once again. It's like all these things is like, wow, how could this Cassio, who's so far behind, get all these like good trades and be like, he's posturing so much, but he's been punished 4 times at this point for the 0-4, and that's part of what's keeping this game very close.
All right, Rift Herald summoned up by C9 here in mid lane. No driver on this one. There were some shenanigans with that this past weekend here in their series against Sentinels, so they're just going to leave this one on the autopilot. It's like one of those Waymos, whatever they are, the robot driving cars here in LA. Yeah, that's a Waymo Rift Herald. It just automatically it just drives itself exactly where it's supposed to be. It hits the target. It's good to go. C9's going to go ahead and pick up turret number 2 there in mid. Still only 1,000 gold ahead as a team, like you're talking about, Jat. Your bottom lane has a 3K gold lead between the two of them, but now it's DSG moving into the C9 jungle, looking to maybe start a fight of their own. Vulcan could be in some danger, hit by the dredge line. Sven with the arrow onto Sajed, who has to cleanse and immediately flash back over the wall. Kryra down to 1/4 HP, and Lions has to flash out now too. DSG falling back towards the river. Castle over the wall, trying to reinforce the lines, but DSG are scattered. Call Me's about to die. He flashes away, but he still falls anyway. Castle tries the flank, but instead he only damns himself. APA takes out that strong Jace, and DSG's plans completely crumble. Thanatos charging in, trying to slow down Lions, and with the backup from the Seraphine, they're going to get another. That's going to be 4 dead when it's all said and done. DSG, they thought they had it, but all they had was a one-way ticket to the fountain.
Yeah, they thought they had it, and I really love the team fight targeting that's coming out of C9 into this, recognizing, okay, arrow onto Sajed, he has to cleanse it, still ends up getting charmed up. Kryra takes a lot of damage, and even though he's still surviving as the Mundo, this ends up being able to get right onto Call Me, because again, Blabber is just so strong with this Ashe Seraphine behind them. That then allows the rest of C9 to rotate onto Castle, who's looking for another Jace flank.
Look, Mundo, guys. No, guys, Mundo's inting. Okay.
Mundo's inting.
By the way, Blabber's favorite thing to do is say the other jungler is inting. You can go listen to their comms from last week. He said that all the time against Hambach. Someone is always inting on Blabber's screen. But I'll say Castle, to me, was the one inting that team fight, because I thought it looked fine until he tried the flank. And now, you know, maybe it's Lions who's inting.
I think Lions might be inting. I think Sven is going to grab a killing spree for free on that one, and Call Me should be able to get away here. I don't really see how Vulcan could be able to catch him by himself. So still, though, 3,500 gold lead for C9. It's rough out here for Disguise. There's your arrow. Oh, no, now Call Me. I don't think you get away from that one. Call Me. He uses the ulti. He stays alive with a flash twin bang from APA. Finishes the job.
APA with a little tip-in shot on the Casio at the end. Sven's arrows in this game have been really, really nice. Really well communicated. I'm going to assume that's like not just Sven being good, but an overall team thing. But again, whenever one of these DSG players is isolated, they have to watch out for this group of Blabber with the Ashe Seraphine behind him, because he can just survive for so long and get on their priority target.
And here we go again. Kryra's your target, and he's just going to go ahead and walk away from this one. I think the story of this game, if you couldn't tell just by looking at the individual gold leads, the kill participation, 11 out of 15 for Sven, 13 out of 15 for Vulcan, only 4 for APA. You've got 9 for Blabber, because he's been helping that bottom lane out a lot too, and then only 5 for Thanatos. So really so much from the bottom lane of C9 this game.
Yeah, play for bot, play through bot with the Scion top lane. That's exactly what's happening. But now third Drake, Soul Point. C9 first to set up, which is exactly where the Ashe Seraphine wants to be.
Okay, Disguise looking for their entry angle instead. Kryra going to lose about half HP, but the same for Blabber. Thing is, Blabber has Seraphine to keep him healed up. He's got the rest of C9 around him, so they can try to secure this, immediately move to Soul Point with it, and sure enough, they will. Castle with the Shock Blast won't get anything.
There's not a real way for DSG to walk in and start that fight, especially when you have a Glacial Augment level 8 Nautilus with 1 item. So that is your frontline engage currently. You don't have an engage, but actually C9, I think transitioning straight over to this Baron is a little bit bold, but I do like the play, especially if they're ready to turn a fight and they have decent war coverage.
Yeah, they've got 4,500 gold lead. They've got Seraphine to keep everybody healthy with shields and heals around the Baron. Kryra is going to walk up, try to make his way towards this, but it's already down to 1/3 of its health. C9 committing to the Baron for now, slowing DPS a little bit, but no, it looks like we're going to go ahead and burst it. C9 takes the Baron. Kryra's soaking some damage. Bullet time doesn't do a whole lot over the wall as the Encore flies through too. They want to try to use Castle to kill off Blabber, but DSG again don't have the damage. The Xinjiao stays alive as APA goes on a killing spree. Sejed under pressure yet again as Thanatos has made his way into the back line, and Decimating Smash does just that. Everybody on Disguise dies. They trade for APA, but what's it matter? It's a Baron +4 for just your mid laner. C9 will take it.
And they'll get so much more off the back of that Baron. Their mid and top waves are already pushed. They are having their cake right now and eating it too, and I think it's DSG being out of sync as well, because a lot of times when you start Baron with 5 people just like this, you're trying to get the Jace TP, but then the fact that the Baron dies and then the Jace TPs anyway into what is already a losing fight just makes things go from bad to worse for DSG.
Yeah, and I like that we ended up seeing that really nice Seraphine Scion combo off the back half of that fight, really making the most of how beefy Thanatos is, extending the range, getting those charms out. And this team comp can just now bulldoze through DSG, as if they couldn't already.
Yeah, and the Ashe having the healing reduction means that Kryra's Mundo isn't going to be getting Giant anytime soon.
No.
He would be the one person who'd maybe be able to buy time in the back line.
You know, APA was complaining about how he doesn't get free wins on the Scion. Thanatos is 6-0 on the Scion in LCS, or career actually. So yeah, he also, like, give him some of those wins, you know?
He's doing pretty good, and the point about the Mundo too, Jat, not only is it the enemy has healing reduction, you're still only level 13. Level 3 ulti is such a power spike, and your team's already dead on top of it. Castle, that fed Jace, is already down. Sejed has to flash away just to avoid dying here himself. C9 honestly can probably just try to push for the win right here. They've got the Baron-empowered minions.
I do wonder how much fun Vulcan's having. Because it's like, this is no Bard, right? But yeah, 1-0-17 looks pretty fun.
Yeah, he's going to be having a great time. Anyway, Lion's taking a little bit more damage here, but C9 not wanting to overcommit onto the Nautilus. Blabber, going to knock up onto Call Me, forces the flash out there. Thanatos flying in from the left side. Lions flashes, barely stays alive himself. As Disguised, all hurt, but nobody dead here just yet, except for Castle, who's still reviving from the earlier pick. So the tier 3 turret dies in the bottom lane. Minion wave crashing into the tier 3 turret mid. Bottom lane inhibitor going to be your target now. C9 going after that one. It's a long-range TP from Call Me. This is Disguised's potential final full send, but C9 are just walking off to stage left anyway, as Disguise can't get in position to try to set up for Call Me's flank. He just ends up rejoining the rest of the team from the same angle, and the TP ultimately results in a whole lot of nothing. Blabber jumping right back into the Lions here. Third talent strike connects. There's your win becomes lightning. Call Me's next to die. The teleport didn't do a thing. Double kill for Blabber Zen. Sajed finally falls. Kryra just barely hangs on here with the Dr. Mundo, but he's the only one left alive. The bottom inhibitor's already gone. The mid lane inhibitor's about to fall, and C9's on the victory march.
Playing with so much confidence, grouping up for the Seraphine heals to make them even more powerful. And then APA, 75% of the team's deaths, just for good measure, at the end, before they end the game.
We'll see if maybe they can kill the Mundo on the steps. Teams like to pad the stats sometimes, but Mundo is a little difficult to do it on. They might still make it happen. And Vulcan, yes, indeed, he does. The Nexus will fall. C9 ran the game start to finish. It's a bot cap. C9 up 1-0.
We need to show the chat. I knew he would do this. If you die 6 times and your team dies 8 times, you have to say mid-gap, and he did.
Last time, it was like neither of us were doing play-by-play. We were just kind of like yelling out stuff, which is perfect for ARAM Mayhem because a bunch of random stuff happens all the time too, right? So check it out. It's going to be a fun time. Now into draft.
I mean, kind of just yelling out stuff is what
ARAM
casting
Mayhem.
is.
I mean, that's my job.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
my
that's
job's
true.
to just yell stuff out. That's the name of the game. In team
I
fights.
just think with the augments, it makes it like particularly chaotic, right? Like, did you guys see the one where the Nautilus got like so much health off of the augment that gives you like both health and largeness?
Tank
that he was,
engine
like,
Goliath,
clipping
steal your
through.
heart.
Yeah, he was like clipping through the actual game.
I feel like every clip I've ever seen of ARAM Mayhem is just somebody bigger than the map. Like
Yeah,
walking
exactly.
around.
And it's like usually a Nautilus.
The really big and the really small stuff is the most new.
Yeah.
Right, it's just funny. All right, let's go ahead and get into our draft. But Emily, you already mentioned it. We are underway here in game number 2.
Just lock in,
C9.
Yeah.
first pick, flex pick Anivia.
Yep.
Yep.
C9 is going to go ahead and ban out the Karma, the Ori, and the Pantheon, disguised, getting rid of APA Ziggs alongside the Jarvan and the Varus power picks yet again. First pick, flex pick Anivia, like you said,
Yep.
Jat. The bird can go a couple of different places these days as C9 responds. Last game, remember, Disguise first picked a bird, and then C9 responded with a power bot lane.
True.
And now this game, Disguise first picks a bird, and what do we get? Corki Nami from C9.
But now the
Enchanter.
bird is probably going into the bot lane. So I'm going to say I do think I'm going to make the assumption potentially going into bot. I think they should leave it up as a flex, especially since Ryze is still available. You might want to play the Anivia into that. But we did see Lions play this previously, and I actually thought that they were going to get kind of turbo stomped by that FlyQuest bot lane. They didn't. They actually played that pretty well, despite the fact that they did end up losing the game. So looking for a little bit more bot lane power on top of this Nocturne pick locked in for Kryra.
Yeah, remember that Nocturne was one of the champions banned in the second half of the draft in the previous game because C9 had their jungler in the first half. Disguise did not. This time around, since you're keeping that Anivia a flex between mid and support, you don't want to go ahead and pick your mid laner early along with it. So Disguise will get their jungler before that second part of the bans comes in, and C9 are going to go ahead. They'll say, fine, we'll switch it up from last time. We'll pick our mid laner. The jungle will remain open. It's Annie for APA.
And Blabber has the option of going with some more utility picks. He's actually been pretty successful on things like Malphite or Sejuani, so it's really hard to ban him out in this instance with them having the Annie locked in, which is also a flex pick. Annie's been getting more play in the top lane.
In the top lane, yeah.
Especially over in like Korean solo queue, so Thanatos very well could play this depending on how the rest of the draft plays out.
Keep an eye on it. I always like those kind of weird flex picks as they start to emerge to see who's going to be the first person to really start adapting this, seeing if they can make it work in stage games versus just in ladder games. But that Ryze that we mentioned, that's banned away. So the Wukong going to be banned out now by Disguise as well.
Yeah, and I like that takeaway from Disguised. Obviously, Wukong, Annie fit together like insanely well in a variety of team compositions. Really great CC chain and follow-up, especially in tandem with that Corki Nami. So good of DSG to take that off the board. And also good to take the Ryze off the board because I think Ryze, especially in tandem with Nocturne, just gives you so much side lane control. So just yoinking that and being like, you know what, we're not going to pick it. We're going to take it away from you. And then taking away the Rumble from Castle, who I think has been like a bright spot, right? Like we talked about all of the plays that they were trying to make mid while C9 was kind of stomping on the bot side of the map. I thought Castle did well in his matchup. He had a few good flanks. He had some less successful flanks, we'll just say, Jet. So taking that kind of power pick away from him, I think is really good.
I like the cute Vayne ban Hover before actually banning the Gnar. They're thinking about the Gnar Vayne matchup in the top lane because if you're C9 right now, you kill the Annie's flexibility by blind picking Gnar. So, but it's also one of the best blind picks for Thanatos to do, so I understand why they would ban it away. And if they end up actually locking in this Ambessa, they'll still be able to hold their flexibility, which keeps their options open in this draft because DSG is still not committed either, and it'll be fully committed, generally speaking, after these next 2 picks.
Yeah, I do like the Ambessa here. The only thing that I don't like here is picking something that is very obviously a top laner and a top laner only, because I feel like you're losing your advantage of red side 5th pick by doing so. You want to make sure that they have to be the ones blinding the top laner. Disguise, I mean, Renekton is kind of the evergreen, just pick it into anything top lane pick, right? So not surprised at all to see that one locked in there for Castle. And now for Disguise. Last time around, they cycled through a bunch of potentially interesting stuff. I've been casting League of Legends. This is my 10th year casting professional League of Legends. I know better than to get bamboozled by this now. I'm not just going to believe whatever they hover. Okay, Akali locked in, which means that Anivia is 100% confirmed going into that support role for Lions yet again.
Yep, and they were going to be okay with that, locking it into the Corki Nami. Then pretty happy with the matchup they're going to have into the Annie, and now we're going to see where C9 goes, whether or not they're flexing, and they are. We are going to see the hovered band that DSG consider between Gnar Vayne, and we get to see Thanatos Vayne into Renekton with the Ambessa flexing down into jungle after the Renekton was locked in to hopefully counter it. They're trying to be sneaky.
Yeah, I love this. I think Thanatos continues to be one of, if not the best top laner in the LCS, right? Like, having a pick like this where he should be able to lane really well into this Renekton, it does take away a key component of C9's team composition, which is having a front line, which is always kind of the danger of these kind of top lane Vayne picks, but it's not like DSG have a super heavy-duty front line either outside of the Renekton, so.
So here's my big thing with Disguise. Whenever I see a matchup between 2 teams where one is ranked very highly, C9 in this case, and one is ranked much lower in the standings by practically everybody's view of the power rankings, right? The team that's ranked lower, I always want to see them have more definitive go buttons. I want to see them have more engage. I want to see them be able to make choices when, where, and how they want to. But for Disguised, I'm kind of struggling to see where that happens here because I don't really know what the big engage is.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be difficult, especially if they do not get this bot lane going early, right? Like if that does not happen, if this Caitlyn and Anivia lane is not able to kind of take over the bot side of the map and they aren't able to make those side lane plays with the Nocturne, I think it gets super, super difficult for DSG pretty quickly. And it is kind of sad because I feel like DSG, when they first came in, were the kind of like trust me dead ass team, right? With like the Nasus top, with believing in their selves. But Clayton, we're going to revisit the blasting cycle.
Well, our question in game number 1 was, okay, Blabber blasted Griffin, Griffin blasted Kryra. Where does the blasting wand aim? Now here that we get to see Kryra versus Blabber. And unfortunately for the Disguise side in game number 1, the blasting wand was aimed right back at Kryra. That's actually a Seraphine Encore flying out of the blasting wand from the bottom lane that had control the entire time. Blabber just helped them extend their lead even further, and the rest was history.
Through the Xin Zhao as well, because Blabber did the most damage in the game along with Sven. They were both around like 26,000, but Enchanter plus Xin can also be absolutely insane.
Oh, it's nasty.
On the team composition point though, Emily, I think the Nocturne Akali is hoping to just be dive buddy for any squishy. Okay. As long as Calmy can get into a decent position in the game. So if they're set up first in an objective and the Akali doesn't have to show, Nocturne ults as soon as the Akali shows, and they can, in theory, kill anyone in the game. So the bot lane sets all that up in the first place, but that is the idea. It just doesn't have a good fallback pattern in terms of team composition.
Right, and that's where I worry, because again, when you have a team that's ranked more highly, when you versus a team that's ranked lower, generally that higher ranked team is going to be more consistent. So I kind of worry about, okay, well, if you don't have the consistency to make sure you get off to that good start, or at least the decent start that you need, and there's no fallback plan, I'm worried.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're looking at top lane right now because as we see, the Renekton is not having a fun time in this Vayne lane. And I think Castle has been kind of a bright spot on DSG, even when they've been struggling. He was kind of looking like one of the potential answers in the last game as well, in addition to Calmy. And he's been one of their more consistent performers. And it makes this matchup against C9 particularly difficult just because of how strong Thanatos is.
Completely agree. And a lot of this comes down to Kryra, and a lot of these moves that C9 is pulling off are kind of daring Kryra to stop you. So Thanatos takes top lane Vayne with TP, no cleanse. So in theory, if there's like a good gank timing, it's a flash W from the Renekton, and then Nocturne walks up and kills the Vayne. But if Thanatos ends up getting the wave too big or the health difference too big before Kryra is able to arrive on a Nocturne, who again is not a good pre-6 ganker, then that lane's going to go really heavily into the side of the Vayne.
So remember in game number 1, we did see around this level 4 point, Kryra coming mid, making that play onto APA. APA getting aggressive, trying to set something up for Blabber. APA ends up giving over the first blood. This time around, though, it looks like Disguise, they don't want to try to make that move against the Annie. Call Me is down to about half HP. They have to remember that C9 was also positioning Blabber there in the first game, so they're not going to force anything. Kryra's just going to go ahead, take his recall. You can see Blabber has already done the same.
Yeah, small little jungle optimization. Kryra knows that Blabber's going to be going Raptors Krugs. Blabber did a Raptors first start, which gets his second set of small camps to be up a little bit faster, gives him this window to game.
Okay, Lions throws out the wall. APA sidesteps away from the Flash Frost. Call Me is down to 200 HP, so even though Lions shows up mid and provides this little bit of extra assistance, this extra pressure, Call Me doesn't have enough health to work with to follow it up and try to threaten summoner spells onto APA, so the C9 mid laner is still doing just fine.
Yeah, it does relieve a tiny bit of pressure, although now Blabber is kind of sniffing around mid lane.
Yeah, Blabber's not in a rush to finish his next 2 camps. He's been extremely efficient early on. Doesn't even have his wolf spawning yet, so he can really sit here without punishment just so APA can get this wave in, base, and then come back with full mana.
Yeah, and meanwhile, C9 and this quirky Nami have kind of taken over the push on the bot side of the map. At the same time, Lions roamed up, so that's not really coincidence, but...
And you can see as both of our top laners have now gone back and shopped. Castle has already had to go back twice, actually. You can see his teleport desynced from Thanatos's. But the difference is brown boots plus cloth armor versus full Berserker Greaves. Tier 2 boots versus Tier 1 boots. In these range versus melee matchups, the boots are so important, and Thanatos having the boots level advantage is pretty big.
It's just the move speed gap. Thanatos, every time he's on the C9 podcast and they ask about top lane matchup, he's always like, well, if I get boots first, then it's fine. And then I win. And that's what's happening right now. Both junglers as well, not in a rush to finish their 5th camp. They're waiting for the extra jungle cookies to potentially do a smite fight over the Scuttle Crab, which is going to be spawning topside. Also, since Blabber's on Gromp, they kind of really clearly know each other's jungle paths right now. Thanatos, with very reasonable level of certainty, can say that the Nocturne's bot on Gromp, so that's why he's pushing up so aggressively.
Ooh, Call Me going very aggressive onto APA here. Uses perfect execution to back to reset his position. Also gets the ulti there out of APA, so flash not used by either one. It is an HP advantage for Call Me as he continues to try to play aggressively here with a smoke screen, but Blabber hits level 6. Public execution is ready.
And he wants to stop Drake because he knows Nocturne's not 6, and the only job he would have is to do Drake, and since DSG left the lane, it's obvious that he's there, so they're crossing. Yeah,
Vulcan down to 300 HP here. He does miss the Aqua Prison, but because Blabber is on the approach, because he has that level 6 versus level 5 that you're talking about, Jet, it means the Disguise has to back away. Now APA getting the better of Call Me here in the trade as both mid laners continue to fight for that pressure, fight for that control over mid. And Call Me's forced back.
It's the crab gap right there. He knew he was level 6. He knew there was no other job, and he's going for it.
Oh, immediately Blabber's ready to follow it up. The stun from APA sets it up for Blabber to make the flash public execution on the target that cannot be missed, and C9 collects first blood.
Really nice to see that coming out of APA and Blabber. Again, off of the recognition from Blabber, he's able to go down, stop that Drake take, push up in tandem with the Annie. Didn't see the window the first time, got it down this time.
Now they do have to worry, though, about Kryra being level 6 and Blabber using his flash ult, so he's not really on the map. So it's definitely DSG's turn to do something, and Thanatos would be the one in danger, which is why he's going to control Vision River.
All right, 1,500 gold lead. If I'm on Disguised, I'm a little bit worried at that. It's not exactly what you want to see 7 minutes into the game, but it's the opposite story of what we saw in game number 1. Because game number 1, C9's lead was entirely built through the bottom lane duo. Here in game number 2, it's all that top side of the map that favors C9, while it's actually disguised with it feels practically disingenuous to call it a lead because it's just a minion bounces difference in the bottom lane. But still, compared to game number 1 where you're down 30 CS and a level and a half, this is significantly better.
The absence of the deficit makes it feel like a lead.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Exactly. Compared to the first game, it is a lead. A lot. Yeah. It's a little contrarian, but I like it. As Disguised will at least continue trying to maintain some control over this bottom side. We still don't have the first Drake taken. Remember that in game number 1, it was about 8 minutes in that first Drake ended up getting felled as Castle's going to pop the Dominus. Does get Ruthless Predator there onto Thanatos. A little bit of extra range that lends. Means that Thanatos is under pressure, but Thanatos, he stays calm.
Yeah.
He doesn't pop Final Hour. He doesn't pop Flash. He's just going to take the recall here.
Yeah, he really didn't want to have to use his ultimate there. Blabber's going to end up covering for him.
APA looks like he might be rotating up.
He's going to give up Drake almost for sure.
Yeah, Kryra's down there at the Drake. He should be able to secure that one for free. Blabber's just going to make sure Thanatos can clear the wave, get the reset that he wants. Blabber just playing around his vein, recognizing that if you can get this guy fed, it's going to be worth more than one Drake in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, Cannon Wave. That top laner's very appreciative of this. You never know if it's actually worth it. The top laners will say, yes, absolutely worth it. But it's worth it if Blabber doesn't die on Grubbies here, since now Castle's able to move.
Well, I think it also helps out because it gave Thanatos enough HP to no longer be under the threat of getting one comboed from Castle's Renekton if they tried to dive him. So then he can safely farm up the next wave. And now he can finally take his recall here. Thanatos will be just fine. Blabber gets Constellation Grubs. Disguised gets the first Drake of the game. We'll see if they can set up a follow-up play, but it might just be a chicken steal instead. Nocturne, like most junglers, pretty adept at stealing chickens, since all you need is some basic AoE, and you're going straight to the kernel.
I thought you were going to make a joke, not actually talk about how easy it is to clear. I guess the kernel.
I said you're going straight
joke.
to the kernel. Yeah, you're going to Kernel Standards, 11 herbs and spices. It's very important for your chicken clearing. It is. Okay, but
Kryra's French-Canadian. How do we work this in?
so what do French Canadians, how do they eat chicken? With poutine?
No.
I mean,
you can put a lot of stuff on poutine, I guess.
Yeah, that could work. All right, chicken poutine, for sure. Well, we have the Spear of Shojin completed there. MasterCard Power Spike for Blabber completed. Makes Ambessa just that much more obnoxious with all the dashing, the constant spamming of the spells. So definitely not a champion that I think any of the frontline wants to deal with here on the DSG side right now. Still advantages for C9 all across that top half of the map.
But neither team really has made a move to advance the game yet. It's been mostly trading back and forth with the one pick off in the mid lane. Here, Blabber got his chicken stolen, so that gives him a window to go steal blue buff. But at the same time, no one's actually contested an invade yet, and Kryra's yet to use that first Nocturne ultimate. C9 playing very conservatively with all 5 flashes up once Blabber's comes off a cooldown, but all solo lane flashes up is the more important thing to note. So it's really difficult for Kryra to find an ult angle.
Yeah, that's what I've been looking out for as well. Like Kryra trying to find these windows to use his first Nocturne out. Obviously didn't need to use it at uncontested Drake, which usually Drake fights is where we're looking at. But as he comes down on this bot side and we have a little bit more bot lane 2v2 scrapping, he could potentially look for something here, especially since they do have some deep vision.
And I feel like that's kind of the tug of war of ideas you have to have when you play a champion like this, is you want to use your ultimate because it is so effective and it is the point of power. It's why you pick this champion. But at the same time, there's that pressure of the cooldown is so long early on that if you waste it, if you pick the wrong moment, it's just, you feel like you lost so much of your playmaking.
Yeah, but also their CC setup for the Nocturne is just so bad. There's no Nocturne Orianna combo. There's no Azir flip back. They have no way, aside from Renekton, of setting up any CC, and he doesn't want to spend that much time top lane because bot lane and mid would fall apart.
Well, as we're waiting on Nocturne to find that moment for the perfect first ultimate, remember that Spring Finals are going to the Mullet Arena in Arizona, June 13th to 14th, so you can go ahead and scan that QR code. Get your tickets now if you want to come out to a live event. They're always one of my favorite parts of the year. They're always a fun time. And we'll see which one of these teams, if either one of these teams, I'm expecting at least one of these teams will make it to the Mullet Arena.
3 teams will go.
Yeah.
C9 will make it.
Yeah,
I'm expecting C9 to.
it.
I think most people that follow the LCS are expecting C9 to make it there, expecting them to be one of those top competitors. Disguised, of course, would love to be able to rock that boat a little bit, but they certainly have a lot of work to do after the first game.
They've had moments of rocking the boat.
Yeah.
And then they just haven't been able to sustain that boat rocking.
Yeah, they never actually capsize it. The boat just rocks a little bit, and then it just goes right back on sail. And Blabber missing the public execution down there, had that one a little bit askew. So I don't know if you guys have heard this before. I think I remember learning this on a Bwipo stream when I was just watching him play solo queue. Talking about Ambessa, with the way that the hitbox works, notice how you see most players try to take it at diagonal angles?
Yeah.
The line is slightly wider if it's diagonal because of the way it's actually lined up in little right angles. It gets slightly, very slightly wider at a diagonal angle versus doing it straight up and down or straight horizontally. So a lot of times, if you can, you want to angle it horizontally because sometimes if it looks like it might slightly clip to the side, it'll still get the guy.
Man, I really want to believe this.
So do I.
I'm just not sure if that's how it works. We need to get Freak
Get into
on the
practice.
phone. Someone who knows like how the hitboxes are coded. Because if that's true for every ability. Well, it's just you'll notice it more on Ambessa ult because it's so narrow.
And I think that's what it is.
It goes into like a perfect straight line,
Calmy might just die here to the solo bolo of APA. No, okay, he gets away from the Tibbers. Tibbers is on a crazy full send mission here. But yeah, I think Bwipo, if somebody shows you this, Bwipo, if somebody shows you this clip and this sounds familiar, please send me a message to confirm or deny this because I thought for sure I remembered seeing this.
Oh no, I remember him saying this as well.
I want to test it now.
Yeah. But yeah, you're 100% right, Jet. Like if it works on one ability, it works on all of them. It's just that Ambessa's ability is like a centimeter wide normally, so it feels more relevant.
And technically, Blabber's Rift Herald last week did come in the diagonal angle and still missed.
Yeah.
Which makes it even worse.
Because I still think it was aiming at the crust. I ran into Blabber backstage before this series, and I told him I was casting his game today, and he was like, hell yeah, this is going to be a good one. And I told him, just make sure you drive that Herald straight at the turret, brother. Straight at the turret. But now, we've got C9 in Disguised, posturing over this second Drake here. Disguised already has it burnt most of the way down, but Blabber's making his way forward. Drake secured by Kryra before C9 can make their way in. Thanatos has already committed a TP. C9 spending that resource. They really want to try to find something here. Otherwise, it's just a swing and a miss. Aqua Prison forces the flash out of Sajed, but Disguise keeps him alive anyway. Meanwhile, Calmy looking for APA here. Kryra over the wall with a nice flash into the pit. Drags Kryra with him. APA trying to guarantee that Disguised at least has to lose a man in the process here, but they don't. Sajed dies to Thanatos off on the side here at the same time as Calmy falls. Blabber diving into the middle of everyone. Here with the Ambessa, but he's locked up, stunned up. Aqua Prism ain't going to do it, but it won't matter. Sven gets the kill on Kryra, and C9 wants more. Right when it looked like Disguised might have got what they wanted and got out with an enemy TP, C9 finds a big fight.
This is how the game breaks open. 30 seconds after the Drake falls, the massive fight breaks out. I mean, all credit actually for starting this fight does go towards APA. Like the flash that he had afterwards is huge. So essentially what happens here is Sajed potentially dead to rights if Thanatos goes all. Actually, no, he was out. Sajed was out. He just decides to go back into a Vayne who was sitting on a control ward. But the bottom of the screen more so shows APA flashing back to his team. That also gets whatever laning advantage that Castle would have. He sacrifices to try and make this play, but it's not successful since the mid laners trade, and then Blabber is just resetting his cooldowns and going so fast with his Spear of Sojin that he cleans up the extended fight.
Whenever you're up against Nocturne or Vi, any one of these types of champions that has to go with you once they click the button on the ulti, I always love to see players take advantage of that. Flashback, but even against Maokai with his W on Twisted Advance, just anything you can do to drag that champion further than they wanted to extend, making the engage. It's always a big brain play that I enjoy seeing from our players. As C9 now command a 3,500 gold lead. That last fight resolved just in time. APA just being himself. Yapping it up in the alt chat. Nice, guys. Nice, real nice.
Where are the muted stats at? We were having those before the game.
Yeah, we need to bring those back.
After mid-gap, his mutes would have gone up by 1 in my book.
Oof. That takes a ton of damage on that one. But no, what I was saying before, APA was yapping. Hold on now. We got the engage from Cry right here in the mid lane. Flash out from Sven, keeping himself alive. Castle versus Blabber up here in the top side of the river. Ace in the hole. That looks more like an auto attack than an ulti, but that's fine.
Yeah, and they are going to split tier 1 turrets on either side, but the big difference is C9 still have this Rift Herald, which is going to be crashed into this tier 2 turret. And DSG are not going to be able to do anything about that.
Yeah,
but that tier 1 turret does go down to the Akali.
They won the turret race by like a second. And that's while that Nocturne was trying to ult in the mid lane, knowing there was a guaranteed numbers advantage because it was just Akali on the bot lane and it was Vayne Annie up on the top side. But this is part of what not burning flashes does to kill a Nocturne's momentum. Even though he landed an ultimate, Sven just kind of flashed backwards and no one is able to follow since this is kind of way too low of a CC team comp to work with a Nocturne who wants to find fights.
And this is what I was saying was my concern back at the very start of the game is where are your go buttons? Yes, Nocturne can fly in, but when they just do that, now DSG invading again. Looking to try to steal away that chicken camp. Perfect execution. R2 from Call Me onto Blabber, but no, over the wall is Blabber. He's doing just fine. He will outplay the enemy mid laner. Blabber's in best of 3-0-2, teaching Call Me the error of his ways.
The blasting cone is still on the side of Blabber, even though he's blasting players who aren't Cryer, so it's maybe a little modification.
We have to adjust the blasting one.
Another big misplay by DSG in this series is only Sajed, according to our producers, only Sajed has APA muted. So they're all just open.
So they're all just tanking
Open
the
lines of
APA
communication.
aggro.
Just psychic damage at all points of the game for 0. Okay, well, Sajed's got that going for him, but honestly, I talked earlier on in the game about how the bottom lane was holding more evenly in this second one. Now, ever since that big bottom side fight, everybody on DSG's behind.
Yeah, this game has exploded open for C9, as has the map, right? They just got that entire outer ring of turrets all down. They can now push their vision line up. It makes it a lot safer for someone like Thanatos to just be kind of in a side lane, in addition to the fact that he is up 1.5k over his lane opponent and in a really good position already with his Hexplate complete.
Yeah, that Hex Plate makes Vayne very, very scary. And also, because you have the extra health on it, it just makes it that much harder for Renekton to try to burst her down before she just kites you. I mean, Vayne kills anybody in 9 auto attacks, and she kills a lot of champions in 6.
I know, it's actually a real pick now, which is kind of strange. I just think it's legitimate with this Hexplate build. You're ranged enough to get away with it, and then your team fights are enhanced because of the ultimate. So big. I mean, to close this game out, though, C9 does have to be able to secure these objectives, and this is the danger when you try and walk in because you're open to a flank. You have a big gold lead, though.
All right, C9 with a 5,000 lead. Call Me approaching on the flank. Kryra dives into the middle of everybody. The burst is down on Sven. They've already killed him, but he's traded for Castle. Blabber's on a rampage here through that one as Thanatos arrives with a teleport of his own, but DSG immediately tries to turn it around. Now Lions knocked back into the egg. The CC on a Call Me. He can't get what he needs from the dive. And the omelet served sunny side up. A double kill for APA. He's cooking them. Blabber's unstoppable. Yes, they finally killed the AD carry. Disguised, they got their man, but at what cost?
Yeah, and you see the window, right? Like Castle pops Dominus, Kryra goes in, but C9 are able to kind of kite back really well. And you talked about this initially looked like a disastrous TP from Thanatos, and then here's just where Blabber absolutely takes over the fight. You talked about how he wasn't blasting Kryra specifically. He's kind of blasting all of Disguised.
Yes, they have a big goal lead, so take what I say with a grain of salt now. But there's an old rule that I used to have with Nocturne that I feel like was violated with this draft. I think this is part of why it felt weird to me. When things go dark, team want group.
Yes.
With Nocturne, pick AoE.
Yep.
But what happens if no AoE is team group and you lose? So in that fight, sure, they got the one, but all of their single target damage was gone, and then they're going to lose the fight every time.
Yeah, and we talked about this from draft, and by contrast, I feel like Blabber can act as follow-up CC, but also has a lot of CC coming out from his team that he can follow up with the Nami bubble and the Annie stun.
Well, C9 have started up this Baron, but they drop it down to about 1/3, and then they let it go. They let it reset. They want to switch over to focus on a potential fight instead. Disguised has brought everybody to the neighborhood here for this potential 5v5. They did arm 3 cupcake traps on that mid lane ramp into the top side river to try to cut off one of those escape angles. Thanatos gets jumped on by Call Me. The Vayne's going to be your target here with the very start. Everybody on C9 swooping in to protect their top laner. Enemy jungler down. Call Me at least finishes the job, but again, this is the cost. Yes, Disguise can full send and kill one man, and one man is all they will ever get, and it costs them at least half the team every single time. Lions and Sajed still alive. Everybody else is dead. That includes the junglers. C9 back on the Baron.
Yep, they'll be able to get Baron off of this, and that's exactly what we're talking about with follow-up CC. Sven?
I think Sven's chilling.
He's got an obsession with taking mid waves.
Yeah.
Like he really wants to ego on these mid waves.
Yeah,
learning from last
and
week.
you can see, again, where Calmy was like, okay, I can get onto Thanatos.
Yeah.
I have the Nocturne in my back pocket. We can do this. But the rest of C9 is actually already moving up here to group. The Nami wave comes out, and again, even though Calmy is able to shut down Thanatos, it's very at what cost with the rest of C9 being able to control the fight.
Yeah, I really like what Thanatos did with his stealth timing there. It made it difficult for them to kill him. Lions needed to place that wall better as well, because I think they could have killed him a little bit faster. That's not going to change the 7,000 gold lead and the overall result of that fight. Thanatos did end up dropping anyway, and now we'll see what C9 can get done with this Baron.
Yeah, and unfortunately for DSG, they're not even on soul point because C9 got that one dragon. It's not like Disguise can try to do some big Hail Mary play at the next dragon spawn to secure themselves an Ocean Soul and maybe claw back a little bit that way. So unfortunately for DSG, it's starting to seem like the end of the show here in Game 2.
And I'd also say this is the best series that Cloud9 has played so far in spring to this point. So they had a big lead in their Sentinels game 2 as well, and then we shockingly went to a game 3. So it's not over till it's over, but they have looked very dominant in game 1 aside from APA's 6 deaths, and that was all part of the plan. He got to say mid-gap afterwards, and clearly the mental damage was what's leading to this lead. But overall, they're just playing more coordinated, and they're team fighting really cleanly.
Yeah, I think that is the big thing to me, right?
Yeah.
Is like C9 being able to kind of see both the beginning and the end of a team fight, even when they're getting jumped on by this Nocturne combo. And like we already identified, part of that is a lack of follow-up CC from DSG.
All right, C9. They're trying to break into the base here in the top lane tier 3 turret. Sven's the target anytime DSG looks at anything, but when he's got Vulcan right behind him, APA and Blabber ready to immediately burst anyone that dives under the Corki, it feels like an impossible assignment for the Disguised side, as you do have Castle in bottom lane trying to at least grab an objective bounty on the tier 2 turret, but that's not really going to matter a whole lot over here in mid. However, Thanatos does get picked. It's Sajed and Kryra making a 2v1 angle there onto the enemy top laner, but at the entire cost of a Nexus turret. All right, C9 with a 4-man push versus 2 defenders from Disguised, but now DSG's bringing everybody in with a 5v4 play. This could be their full send. C9 trying to see how they want to position here for this fight, but Blabber has already missed the ultimate. C9 getting back, looking to focus on Calmy here in the back line first, and Vulcan takes him out with a tidal wave through the smoke as Castle slices forward, but he dices right into his own demise. 5v4 ain't gonna matter. C9 will slam the team fight anyway. Only Sajed's left alive, but the Caitlyn ain't getting away. That's an ace for APA and C9, 18-4, 25 minutes into the game. C9, 2-0 Disguise.
And that's the series. Blabbers and Bessa 5-0-11. They just brute force the Nexus in a 4v5 to end it.
We posed the question at the beginning of the day, is the blasting wand a circle or is it a straight line? It is a straight line all the way through. First Griffin, then Kryra. Blabber has, he's established himself in a good spot so far here.
Yeah, and maybe like outside of some shenanigans in game 1,